Vanessa Hudgens. For so many of us, that name immediately makes you think of Gabriela Montez of High School Musical. But for years, there's been this other story following her around, a story about rude encounters and this, well, mean girl persona. So today, we're going to try to unpack all of that. We'll look at the stories, the big controversies, and the context behind one of the most debated public images in Hollywood. Okay, let's just dive right in.
So much of this kicks off with a really simple question that was asked on Reddit. Has anyone ever met Vanessa Hudgens? And the top voted reply was this, just this short, kind of ominous sentence. Are you sure you want to know? Wow, that one line just perfectly captures the whole tension, doesn't it? It hints that there's a story there, and it's probably not the one you're hoping for. So, what is it that people claim to know?
Well, this reputation seems to be built on this really consistent pattern of negative stories, anecdotes from fans, from service workers, and they've been piling up for years.
This one goes way back, all the way to her first big break. It really paints this picture of a young star who was already seen as kind of dismissive and unfriendly, even when she was at the height of her Disney fame. Now, the source suggests it might have been because the friend was trying to talk to her boyfriend at the time, Zac Efron, but for that fan, the impression was made, and it stuck. She was rude.
Okay, and then you get accounts like this one, which shifts the story from just being unfriendly to something more like entitlement. A retail worker says Hudgens came in, mentioned getting free stuff at Coachella, and then basically asked for a discount, which made the employees super uncomfortable. I mean, the story really highlights this disconnect between her celebrity wealth and asking for freebies, which, you can imagine, really rubbed this person the wrong way.
And the stories just keep popping up from different times, different places. Here's another person sharing that their trainer, who worked airport security and met tons of celebrities, specifically called out Vanessa Hudgens as a total letdown. It's this consistency across all these anonymous reports that really gives that mean girl label its staying power. You know, anonymous stories on the internet are one thing. You can kind of take them with a grain of salt. But the whole narrative gets a lot more serious when a well-known person shares their own negative experience. It pulls the rumors out of the comment sections and puts them right into the public spotlight, which is exactly what happened next.
And yeah, this is the big one. The influencer Bretman Rock has been very open about his run-in with Hudgens. He says he was at an event trying to say hi to a CEO that she was talking to. According to Bretman, she saw him coming, tried to hide, and then actually had her assistant physically stand in front of her to block his path. For Bretman, what really stung was their shared heritage. He said, "I'm Filipino. You can't even like your own people." It was a moment he found just deeply disappointing.
So, moving beyond these personal stories, Hudgens' public image has also been hit by some pretty big controversies where her actions caused a huge online backlash. This is where we move from how she treats one person to these broader cultural issues.
For years, she was the self-proclaimed queen of Coachella, and her festival style often got her into some seriously hot water. This slide kind of perfectly lays out the two sides of that whole debate. When she posted a photo with a dreamcatcher in her hair, one critic just went off, accusing her of repeatedly disrespecting cultures. But then you had defenders, including some who identified as Native American, who argued it wasn't a big deal and that people should just unfollow her if they don't like it.
And it's really important to remember, the dreamcatcher thing, it wasn't a one-off. It was part of a recurring theme. Over the years, she got similar criticism for wearing a bindi, for posting photos in braids. It all created this perception that she was either totally unaware of or maybe just didn't care about the cultural meaning behind her fashion choices.
But maybe the most damaging controversy of all came in March of 2020, right at the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. She was on Instagram Live talking about lockdowns possibly lasting until July, and she made this comment. The tone just came across as so incredibly dismissive, so callous, during a time when the whole world was terrified. You can probably guess what happened next. The public reaction was immediate, and it was fierce. She was just condemned for it, and that clip went viral for all the wrong reasons. She did issue an apology pretty quickly, saying her words were insensitive and not appropriate, and that it was a huge wake-up call. But for a lot of people, the damage to her reputation, it was already done.
Okay, so we have this mountain of stories and public mistakes piling up. But is that the whole picture? I mean, to really get this, we have to look at the absolutely insane pressure she was under from a really young age. And we have to hear her own explanation for why she acted the way she did.
So, Hudgens has actually admitted that, yeah, she hasn't always been the easiest person to deal with. But from her perspective, this behavior didn't just come out of nowhere. She says it was a defense mechanism, born out of the crazy circumstances of her early fame.
And here it is in her own words. She straight up admits to being mean. She ties this behavior directly to her relationship with her High School Musical co-star Zac Efron. She talks about being constantly mobbed by girls trying to get to her boyfriend, and her response was to just put up a wall and get hostile. In her telling, it was a reaction to feeling completely overwhelmed and frankly threatened all the time.
And she explained this more in an interview, what it was like to be approached constantly when she was just trying to do normal stuff, like grabbing coffee in sweatpants. She said she developed this habit of just shutting down the second she saw that look of recognition on someone's face. Now, she says she later realized that was the wrong way to handle it, but it gives you a little peek into the mind of a young person who is just struggling with losing their entire private life.
But to really get the pressure she was under, we have to go back to 2007, to the single biggest scandal of her career. Because this event didn't just shape her image, it almost destroyed it completely. And it gives so much context for that defensive person she just described.
So when she was just 18 years old, private photos she'd taken were hacked and leaked all over the internet. The fallout was just massive. Disney, the company that made her a star, reportedly threatened to fire her from the franchise. She was forced to issue a public apology, basically taking the blame for being the victim of a crime. It's even been reported she had to take a pay cut for High School Musical 3. Years later, the FBI figured out it was a hacker who also went after stars like Scarlett Johansson. But at the time, all the blame was put squarely on her.
And the public backlash, especially from the parents of her young fans, was absolutely brutal. One mother told the media she was devastated, calling Hudgens damaged and no longer pure. Another was worried about having to explain it all to her 8-year-old daughter. Just imagine being 18 and facing that kind of judgment for a huge violation of your privacy. This whole thing created this impossible pressure for her to be this perfect, good girl from that day forward.
So what it all really boils down to are these two parallel stories that don't seem to fit together. On one hand, you have this long, consistent pattern of stories from fans, workers, even other celebrities that paint her as rude, dismissive, and entitled. And on the other hand, you have the story of a young woman who is thrown into this insane level of fame, had her privacy violated in this really traumatic public way, and who admits her meanness was just a broken defense mechanism against a world that wouldn't leave her alone.
The case of Vanessa Hudgens really doesn't give us a simple answer. Is she the mean girl from all the stories? Or is she a young woman who just built a wall around herself after some intense public trauma? Ultimately, her story forces us to question what we see and to maybe consider the bigger picture behind any celebrity's reputation.